Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the short blast of the bitter truth. And again, if you've been listening the last few weeks, you'll know that I'm kind of on a media rant. And excuse me, had a couple of beers. Yeah, man, I think y'all watch too much fucking TV, and I say this because even the people that will say I don't watch television, I think you suffer from confirmation bias. Good friend of mine, Dr. Brown, who came on, Dr. Charmaine Brown, not to be confused with Dr. Adam Brown, came on the show a few weeks back, and she was talking about is Google making us stupid, which was an article by a guy, I think his name was Nicholas Carr, and she said that we suffer from confirmation bias. So while many of us will say we don't watch TV, I'm sorry, if you don't watch Fox News, but then you go to CRTV, it's the same fucking thing. And for those of you that are like, so-called lefties, and you go, well, I don't watch television, but then you watch, Pod Save America, you should listen to another podcast called Pod Damned America, because that's a great fucking show with a guy named Jake Flores. But that being said, because we go for confirmation bias, we don't want to hear anything else that flies into the face of our narrative, right? Because our narrative is who we are, And for some reason with social media, we want to be right all the time. The other day I put something up online, and or a response to somebody, and I said, "Hey, I thought this was the case. Tell me why I'm wrong." And instead of just going, "Oh, well," because I wasn't making fun of the guy or what, I got like 4 or 5 assholes. They were like, "Oh, well, you're an idiot." I'm sure the study would say. I didn't say I was right. I said I thought this. You posited this idea or thesis. Why don't you tell me why I'm wrong? And they didn't. Today, some dickweed right-wing prick, I kept asking the same question. Based on this metric that you just proposed to me, why don't we invade Colombia? Oh, you poor dear. Shit like that. Going, okay, then you can't answer the question? I'm going to give you a quick lesson here really quickly. Oh, a quick lesson quickly. That's not a repetitive statement. If you've had a debate class or a speech class, the number one rule, 101 of debate, is you don't insult the speaker. Now, you could denigrate what they say, challenge the facts, challenge the premise. But as soon as you insult them without handling the premise of their statement, then you've lost your argument. You're wrong. And I know I've won any argument as soon as they go to insults. In person or online, doesn't matter. If I keep repeating the question, okay, well, should we invade Venezuela based on what you said? Oh, okay, so you can't answer my question. Why? Because you don't read and you don't watch fucking television. And now with technology, Amazon has this thing called Audible, where if you're like, I don't like to read, I hate reading books, reading is hard. Okay, you can go through more books in a week faster and more often and reread them, quote unquote, listening to them, because you can listen to the book while you're working out and at the grocery store and, driving your car and running errands, and listen to it and hit repeat and listen to it again and back that part up and maybe take a note. I'm guilty of Audible the last 3 or 4 years because of my schedule. And I never thought I would succumb, but a friend of mine talked me into trying one book and I got hooked. I was like, oh my God, I went through that book in like a day. Okay, awesome. Start going through more books. Oh my God. And, for better or for worse, but it's there. And you can read other things. You could read magazines. I still subscribe to a few magazines and I read them cover to cover. It's amazing what you see in a magazine article that, say, for example, is covering Venezuela, and then they go into, say, for example, our past fuck-ups in Chile or, the Congo, and you get a little detail there that you didn't have before because the magazine or the reporter in that magazine, say it's Rolling Stone or Time or whatever, they're going to go backward a little bit. It's more than reading a clickbait or a couple of paragraphs in an article, and that's the challenge that we have with the confirmation bias is we see the clickbait and we don't read the whole article. And half the time, if you read the article at the end, they will admit that they couldn't confirm the entire premise of the fucking article, or that there was an editor retraction 2 weeks ago on this very subject, but we're going to print it again because it's fucking clickbait. And how many times a year does CNN, fire producers over a bad story? Pardon me. Over a badly reported story, or just getting something dead fucking wrong, and yet we still watch them and go, oh, but the news said. There's a guest on my show a few times, good friend of the show, a guy named Chris Ward, who was in the military, and he was in Kosovo, and he served in South Korea. And one of the things he made a brilliant point about, he goes, I hate when people tell me, well, I saw it on the news. He's all, I was the news. I faxed them, per the Defense Department, what they were to say. And they said exactly what we sent them, word for word, on every outlet. And you're going, isn't that interesting? And so when we just simply go for confirmation bias all the time, we really shortchange ourselves. And I really thought at the advent of the internet that this was going to be better. Because when I was a kid, anybody remember the 70s and 80s, you had to write a paper, whether it was in history or, English or whatever, and your teacher always wanted a bibliography. You remember that? And if you gave a shit and tried to do a bibliography, and if you didn't know the subject, you went to the library. And they had all those microfiche reels of all the newspapers going all the way back to like 1905 or whatever. And, you got to kind of zero in on the dates of the paper and then get a bunch of film and sit there and scroll, and look for stuff. And in the meantime, you found some other things. You're going, oh, this is kind of cool. When you're 12 or 13, you don't even realize the value of this. And now, when the internet happened, I'm thinking, a kid today, he could just do an entire essay and get a bibliography off of Google in 4 seconds flat and just, write his paper and be done within a couple of hours. Hour, maybe. And I thought that was going to be the way of the internet, instructing us in things that we didn't know before. But no, we just go for the same confirmation bias. If we're kind of right wing, we don't want to know the left wing. And if we're kind of left wing, we don't want to know the right wing. And I got news for you. We got one big money party that owns everything, including the TV I'm telling you not to watch. When I watch some entertainment, that's cool. I like Hogan's Heroes reruns as good as the next guy. But if you're going to sit there and tell me that you're able to just cycle through this crap and not believe that it's controlled by a handful of people, and you're being told what to think, when to think it. We're not teaching kids how to think. We're teaching them what to think. And that's the challenge with confirmation bias. That's why the so-called left is against the right and the so-called right is against the left. And the point I was going to make a second ago was we have one big money party that controls all this crap. One big money party and oligarchy that controls all this crap. That's why an idiot like Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks, can think he can run for president because his ego is so fucking massive and he thinks because he's a billionaire he can run for president just because another dickhead billionaire ran for president and won. But they control everything. And they set you apart and set you against each other with right-left bias, when really it's one big money party. And you got the sort of right wing that, likes their guns and doesn't really like gay people. And you got the sort of left wing that's not really cool with guns, but they like their gay people. And that's about it. They take their money from the same fucking places, man. They take their money from Goldman Sachs. They take their money from Hewlett-Packard. They take their money from Exxon, Chevron, all of them. And the only difference between the two so-called parties is the Democrats will pretend and pay fealty, pay some phony lip service, and still speak in that technocratic, effete jargon of multiculturalism and our values and political correctness. Basically, they just want to make sure you don't get your feelings hurt. Fuck that. Without economic and social justice, which Martin Luther King understood, you don't have anything. And then the right wing just openly fucks you, and they don't care. So that's kind of about that. That's kind of the point of this short blast. Quit watching TV. And if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.